we really are getting to a spot where the ability to, process conversations, rationalize answers, give personalized, answers that are highly trained to your corporation's, DNA. Like, you're going to be able to have a better customer conversation with AI than you would a salesperson relatively quickly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Making of a Nobody. I'm Sejal Thackeray, your host for today. And today we're going to be talking about whether traditional sales funnels are becoming obsolete and why startups need to seriously rethink their sales strategies. We're also going to be talking to you a little bit about some of the emerging trends and some challenges that we want to be aware of as we head into 2025. So joining me today for this conversation is our Chief Nobody, Mark McNally, VP of Incubation, Andy Walsh, but Andy just got a promotion. He's our Chief Incubation Officer. Welcome back, Andy and Mark. We're also joined by a special guest today, our VP of Marketing, Rob Voccola. Welcome to the show, Rob. This is Rob's first time. And Rob, if you haven't seen any of the prior episodes yet, one of the things I love about hosting is asking people this question when they're joining us for the first time is to share a little bit about your background and tell us about what inspired you or attracted you to our Nobody Studios journey.
That's a good one. So background is about 20 years in technology marketing. I started out of college at a company called Sage Software. They're a global business management software company. They've got 50 different brands, and it was really nice to cut my teeth there and learn about the creative process, learn about lead generation and marketing as a whole. As time went on, I got into different startups and studios. I've started and ran a couple of my own businesses. And so what really attracted me to the studio, well, for one, Mark and I had worked together in the past. And so to be able to join forces again and work together was something that I was excited about, but also to see all the different things that we're working on here at the studio, the different companies that we're starting up, and we're really focused on making an impact in the world. And then personally, I love change. I love new things. I love being able to work on different things and changing context from a day-to-day basis. So all the way around, it was a win-win for me to jump on board, and I'm glad that I did.
Awesome. Thank you. And look, you have fans already. Min Bageda is joining us, and he's saying, yippee, all my favorite people. And we've got Anthony Hall and a bunch of other people already. I knew this conversation was going to resonate. So let's just jump right in. And Mark, I'm going to start with you with the first question today. And we're going to just keep it conversational like always. And for everybody else, don't forget, if you have any questions on this topic for Mark, Rob, or Andy, feel free to put them into our chat and we'll definitely get to those questions during the show today. But Mark, you have extensive experience in leading multiple startups, right? And so talk to us about some of the key lessons you've learned from, just your past sales strategies. What worked, what didn't work, and how we're using some of those learnings in our current approach at Nobody Studios.
It's always interesting to figure out what's changed and what's stayed the same, right? And so if you go back, I started my career 27 years ago, the first time I was really thinking about marketing and sales conversions and stuff. I really think that the things that have not changed is relationships do matter. People expect the product to be good, great. The pricing matters. People want good answers. They want responsiveness. So like what it means to have a good customer experience from 30 years ago was, do I like this company? Do I trust it? Do I like this product? Do I think the pricing is fair? Do I get the responses I want? Those kinds of things. So those, I don't think those things have changed. I think what has changed, and I'll use the analogy more of like e-commerce because everybody can understand the journey of e-commerce. I started out in my first career, very beginning of my career, building e-commerce sites. And this is back when like the articles were like, well, people really feel comfortable putting a credit card on the internet. Like those are the kind of stuff we were dealing with, right? And people were okay buying something where they didn't know if it was in stock. They didn't know when it was going to ship. They were comfortable waiting 2 or 3 weeks. And now look at what's happened. Like we are so impatient that if it's not same day delivery, we're starting to get, frustrated. And if I can't see before I click buy, the minute it's going to be there. And I don't have 18 different options to see exactly what's in stock and how much of it's in stock. So I know how long I can wait. Like, we have really high expectations of our customer experience as e-commerce. And I think that's become true with, if you're doing a SaaS-based product, a B2B product, if you're doing any number of, like, we have an app-based world. We're expecting to like download something and use it in like 5 seconds. We're not really expecting to talk to a salesperson. We're expecting to have all the answers like easy in front of us. I want to test drive the product. I want the product to be self-explanatory. I mean, Apple iPhone was the first complex technology product in history to be shipped without a manual. I mean, think about that. Before that, you buy a BlackBerry and you got this big old thick bound printed, user guide. And so I think our expectations have gone to that. We expect to just be able to grab something and use it. We don't want complex training. The consumer base is changing. You have a lot more millennials, you have a lot more 20, 30 somethings, and those folks are less inclined to talk to a salesperson. They just want answers. They want to talk to a chatbot. They want to be able to click buy. They want to be able to put in a trial, maybe a credit card, and they want to be off to the races. And so the expectations and the demands in a sales funnel world is not necessarily to force them through the funnel, your grandfather's sales funnel, which is the next step is to talk to somebody. The next step is to get on a demo. It's like, no. People are getting frustrated with that. People are getting bored with that. People want answers. They want to get started, and they want to. Proof is in the pudding. If they like your product, the product's working, they'll pay for it. They'll continue to pay for it. And so you do see sometimes companies you can tell were not born from the digital ground up. They're maybe a legacy company, or you can tell they're maybe led by older leaders that we're still trying to force old customer journeys and old sales journeys to people. And there's benefits in those things. Don't get me wrong. Like, you want to have an outlet if someone wants to talk to somebody, but more often than not, people are looking to, like, I multitask all day long. So when I get to a website that doesn't have a chat bot, I'm pissed. Like, I want to ask questions while I'm doing a call so I can answer things and get things done. And if someone's like, hey, why don't we jump on a call? I'm like, I'm rolling my eyes. And so you have to have an expectation when you create your sales funnel, when you look at your conversion funnels, the customer journey, you have to have an expectation that all the information is at their fingertips. They can get the answers as they want. They can immediately get gratification and test drive the product, download it and start using it. And it should be easy enough that they can do it without training. And I think if you're not making that the standard or the expectation, you're probably going to be in the bottom percentile of your space.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for sharing that. I agree with you. I think today's landscape is like competitive, right? And so you want to be quick and provide that level of customer service. So Andy, obviously we all know that having a well-designed sales strategies are critical, right? You need to be really good at that for startups. So how have you seen the concept of traditional sales funnel evolve in the recent years?
Yeah, it's that linear approach is kind of dissipated to a certain degree. So the level of automation you're able to do now in the first stage of just finding leads, like there's so much data that you can create a large language model for and scrub and come up with a whole bunch of leads and then find ways to validate those before you even have to have a conversation. So I had a really interesting conversation this week actually with a gentleman from a company called Tracksuit who manages brand health assessment. And he was telling me about Clay, which I didn't know much about. And within that platform, the ability to get really warm leads. And there's a bit of work behind it to be able to get to the source of that lead and then contact them and then localize a message for them. But the fact that you can get to an individual local message to one person in context of how they engage in the world, understand how they engage, what they buy into, and what works for them is this unique thing, right? So all of a sudden, what would have been the front line of a sales workforce is done through an automated approach. And if you get the subtlety right in that and make it feel like it's a human approach and not an AI model sort of behind the scenes, you can get someone down the pipeline a lot further. But I think the piece that follows on from that is once you have the conversation, you also need the ability to be able to nurture that. And that's still a human relationship. Ultimately, what that comes down to is ability to ask someone a question, understand them, what their challenge is, etc. And I think that transactional buying, Mark talked about e-commerce. When you're looking at peer reviews and things, etc., it's more transactional. That's okay. But if you're selling something in a B2B, like a lot of our businesses are, or if you're selling something that needs more context or education, etc., conversations are critical. So human relationships still come into that, but finding those people is where I've seen that shift change a lot.
I want to add to that too. I think, when I consider traditional sales funnels, I think transactional, I think one-to-one, I think there's an ad, then there's a conversion event, right? And you see this a lot with whether you're buying a widget off of Instagram or an ebook or a course, or you're going to an event. In the B2B space, though, oftentimes there are high 4-figure, 5-figure, even 6-figure purchases, right? So it's multi-layered, it's multi-touch. And the question we need to answer as a studio, as marketers and as salespeople is, how do we identify those people? And Andy was touching on that a moment ago. But not only how do we identify those people quickly that require multiple touches, but how do we already have the right assets or the right touch points in place that's going to nurture them down the customer journey. So I kind of love what's going on with technology right now, and how it's really moving from a one-to-one to a linear approach to a more adaptive and nuanced approach.
As we're sort of giving practical advice to startups that are watching this episode today, what are some practical ways that they can build those relationships and trust, right? Trust becomes a way that we can differentiate ourselves from others, is building that trust with our consumers or customers. So give us some practical ways of doing that.
Yeah, I would just challenge, I agree with what Rob and Andy said, but I would challenge, and I wasn't saying I was answering this in the e-commerce world. I was actually saying I think the whole business world's going there. So even in a SaaS product or a B2B product, I think the expectations are to get to an answer, to be able to touch the product and be able to start using that. Even if it's a dental practice software or it's a hub marketing automation software or whatever. And I think this trend started 10 or 15 years ago. So I'll tell you what I think is where these two come together. They're just becoming more and more integrated. About 10 or 15 years ago was the first time you started seeing some large enterprise software products get to $100 million in sales and then go IPO and reach multi-billion-dollar market caps. The two that come to mind are Splunk and Tableau, if anybody knows those. They are traditionally in spaces where you would have to license similar type products from, Oracle or Microsoft, and you go through long enterprise sales cycles. But both those companies took over their markets respectively by doing, the starting point was a single seat license, and it was a free trial. And then you could put in a credit card that most users could just put on their corporate card without asking permission. So their single seat license for Tableau was $1,200 a year. You got to use it for free for 30 days. And so that converted a whole bunch of people who started getting hooked on that product. And they got to $100 million in revenue only on single seat licenses. And when they went public, their story to the market was, well, we got to this $100 million revenue, but now, because we've been growing for 7, 8, 9 years, you can look around in these certain enterprises like GM or Ford or something, and you're going to see 800 single seat licenses. So we're going to go public, raise all this money so we can build an enterprise sales force to go convert those folks into enterprise licenses. So they convert maybe, $1 million in revenue at a big corporation into an $8 million enterprise license. But they had gotten to a certain amount of maturity and success and, customer loyalty and validation before they started building that kind of high touch part of their sales force. And I think the same thing is happening if you fast forward 10 or 15 years right now. The expectation of our customers in the enterprise space or B2B space still is, I don't want to start with a 6-figure purchase. Give me a chance to start using the product. If I'm finding value, then I'll come to you to negotiate because I have more seats that I want or whatever, right? And you can automate more and more of that than you ever could before, right? You can reach out with really complex engagements with folks and say, looks like you're at this certain spot. We can unlock these new features. We can, give you a break on your thing if you take this next step up. A lot of that stuff now can be more automated, but that's the most appropriate time to be integrating a more customer relationship type thing. And Avalify is a great example. Like Avalify is one of our products. You could easily make that a very, very high touch sale, right? But what we have strived to do is still make it something that whether somebody watches a video, reads a blog, or they talk to us, they can immediately use the product. And if they use the product, the proof is in the pudding. If they use the product and they see the value, and our single use version is a single Avalify report. But we know our target audience is people who would probably need that report 20, 30 times a month. So then that that converts into a monthly sale or recurring SaaS type model. And then great. If we'd love to talk to them, if we can engage, get them into a customer relationship type thing to convert, great. But I think the standard still is you shouldn't require that. We do want to create relationships, but you're still, I think the expectation is more and more easy conversions from that easy kind of starting point or trial point.
Yeah, I wanted to just share this comment that one of our supporters, Anthony Hall, wrote. Best demos have been the ones that have set the product in front of the customer, let them experience it, and the product sells itself. And that's exactly, Mark, what you were just saying, right? So Andy and Rob, do you want to add anything to what Mark was just saying or respond to that?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And, you know, I'd say the one thing that I add to that is that users don't like things stuffed down their throat, right? They're on their own journey and their own discovery. And so as a marketer, the challenge that I have that I'm constantly faced with is what assets, what materials, what demos, what things can I put online that not only that they can discover, but we can discover them and feed to them so that purchase process is easy for them. It's an easy decision. And yeah, it's there's not a long sales cycle. There's not multiple conversations that need to be had. There's not permissions that they need to seek within their organizations. They have all the information they need. They have the use cases. They have the proof points. They know now, you know, how other customers are using it and finding success. And so it's an easy decision for them. And then from a technical perspective, we made it easy for them to use the product. So absolutely, nail on the head.
Yeah, Andy, I would love to hear from you again, going back to that question about what are some practical ways that startups can start to build that trust at every customer touch point?
Yeah, there's probably two that I would look at. And I think that the ability to find that sort of minimal viable audience at the start and finding that personal relationship, I think having one-on-one conversations with people, understanding their challenges, because it's easy to sort of sit in an isolated box and assume that what you're doing is solving a problem. And obviously you go through your own validation, but having a large enough sort of chorus of people that can give you dynamic feedback, tell you what their pressures are, starts with asking lots of questions. So you build trust by having conversations, right? Understanding who they are, what their challenges are, the way that you can help solve for that. And you need to have a hypothesis in the sense of what you're solving for and stress testing that, but evolving what you're doing. And in that sort of early stage of building those relationships, you need to look at ways that you can add value, drive trial, and build trust. And that's very hands-on. You need to get your leads, of course, but you need to be able to nurture those people and make sure you can drive loyalty. The second stage of that, which is like all around sort of scale, is quite often trust can come in different ways, and it can be sometimes external validation. So within that initial customer base, amplifying stories, not being scared to ask your early customers to share some feedback, to have an open conversation, and letting the masses sort of endorse and speak on your behalf. If someone's comfortable doing that, then lean into it and share that story, because like one, people love to be sort of amplified more often than not. They love their point of view being shared, particularly in today's world. And two, it allows you to then build that organic growth where you start to have almost ambassadors that are informal, but they become the people on the street that are sharing what your product does or what your service is and how you can grow that.
Yeah, Andy, you just said a couple of things that I really want to highlight for everybody that I think was super important, right? When you're looking at how do you build that trust, right? I think it's important for startups to keep in mind that you can't really look to like a one size fits all sales strategy, right? You need to really understand your customers' needs, their preferences, their motivations, right? And depending on where you're located or what segments you're looking at, those are going to be different. And so you have to adapt your strategy to that. But I also like what you said, Andy, about the customers who are able to trust the brand, right, are more likely to be advocates. They're going to promote the brand through their own social media, their links, their emails, et cetera. And we see a lot of that going on at Nobody's Studio, right? A lot of the people that have joined on as an investor or somebody that's on our team, they're always posting about that and talking about the studio and some of the companies we're building. And that definitely helps, right, get that feedback so we can continue to make those changes. And so you started going there earlier, Andy, talking a little bit about how automation and AI is now changing the game, and it's allowing us to provide more of a sort of a personalized and dynamic sales experience. So if one of you can talk a little bit about how AI is going to be changing the game, and then what are some of the pitfalls of relying too heavily on automation?
Having trust in the marketplace is really important, right? So we sell to people. We're a collection of people selling to people. We're not a business selling to business, right? And so having openness, transparency, and the like are really, really important. So how do you do that in online that is typically a one to everyone type of conversation, and it's not dynamic and there's not feedback? And that's where AI comes in. So some of the things that I've seen AI in just in the last couple of years, the easiest example is through your live chat feature, right? Giving people the ability to ask questions in real time and getting real answers, whether it's from an actual person or from an AI that's been trained. Mm-hmm. Having FAQs available, having customers' testimonials and success stories available. There are some technologies that actually allow you to present different information on your website depending on the user in and of themselves. So if they've already had a conversation with you once, then there's a lot of data and a lot of information that we can collect, and providing them dynamic content based on who they are, their specific use case, whether it's industry or role within their organization is really, really important, and helps us present and helps companies present a front to an individual that gives them all the information that they're looking for, and does so in a manner that is open, it's transparent, and allows them to ask questions and have dynamic feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Andy, do you want to add anything to that, or Mark?
I've got, I think what Rob said encapsulates me. I think that the piece is understanding the role of both, like the benefits of AI, that it's the manual labor part of what you do in the sales process, but not letting that sort of get in the way of the fact that you've still got a job to do as a human, like I touched on before. So identify where you can get efficiencies in time, but then also make sure that you lean into the things that are tried and tested, which is that human behavior.
Yeah. What are some of the emerging trends that you see, as we look forward, to 2025? What are some of the things in sales and customer experience that startups should be aware of? What are some of the trends? And I would love for one of you to touch on what are some of the challenges that we see coming our way.
I can tell you with certainty in the next 12 to 24 months, you'll literally be able to just talk out loud about how you want your marketing experience to look and operate, and it'll be spun up on the fly. And those disruptive technologies will allow you to do things so much faster and so much a fraction of the cost. And so that's going to turn a lot of things, on its head. I hate to say this, but I just know where AI is going faster than anybody predicted. And you're going to be able to have highly tuned human level conversations, probably better than a salesperson, really quickly, if we're not already there, like this month. Some of the new releases that are coming and the roadmaps on the AI from the AI big guys, we really are getting to a spot where the ability to, process conversations, rationalize answers, give personalized, answers that are highly trained to your corporation's, DNA, its culture, its product intricacies. Like, you're going to be able to have a better customer conversation with AI than you would a salesperson relatively quickly. Again, I hate to say that because I do value relationships, but I think it's good for the consumer, because I'm talking about getting answers you want in order to make a decision, even negotiation, making requests. All that stuff is going to be the expectation of the customer. And the expectation of the customer is also going to be, think about it again, you don't have this with salespeople, that anytime I want to have a conversation with virtual Rob, he's there. Sunday at 2:00 in the morning, 15 times throughout the day, Rob picks up where we left off. He remembers me. He knows exactly what your situation is. He's thinking of you throughout the week, so he's pinging you things you might want to know about. Humans can't do that. But I do think there's a really inefficient sales and marketing things that are going to be turned on its head in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Mark. I would love to hear, I know we're almost at time, but I would love to hear both from Rob and Andy on that last question. What are some of the emerging trends? What are some of the challenges that we need to be aware of as we go into 2025? Rob, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark covered it quite a bit, but I'll say how I've experienced it as a marketer and how it's allowed at least my team to operate more efficiently, more effectively, and how I can easily see it going down the path that Mark is talking about. So, I think about some of the GPTs that are available today, right? Everyone knows ChatGPT, Gemini from Google, Claude, and there's a variety of other ones that have specializations. But I know today, for instance, I can go on Gemini and not just give it a command and get an output, but I can have a conversation with it. And it's nuanced, and I can go back and forth, and I can tell it how I'm feeling, and then it'll apologize to me for feeling that way, that it gave me an output that didn't meet my expectation, and it's so sorry, and how it's going to change and be better, and then give me an output that's actually better. So it's very easy to see that as that gets better and perfected, it's really going to be laid across all of our applications and really how we operate and interact with companies and businesses. And then I know just from how we work, and I've used it to create standard operating procedures. I've used it to create AI voiceovers, video, build web pages, web copy. I've used AI for all of it. And so I absolutely see that the trend is going to continue. It's going to get better. And as many are speaking that are popular in this space, singularity is coming, right? You'll be able to talk to AI and as if it's a real human being. It'll be able to process information faster than we can. And is doing that already, and then I'll also be able to put that within context. So it's an exciting time. As far as what's going to go wrong with it, I don't believe it's the Terminator. I think good things are coming though.
Yeah. And Anthony, I just want to read Anthony's comment. And I've been playing around with a bunch of those chat AI tools as well. It's just fascinating to see how quickly they're evolving and how these newer versions are coming out. But Anthony said one of the challenges, right, of building trust is, especially if you're building in an international platform and ecosystem like we are at Nobody Studios too, AI and automation can't replace the need to press the flesh. Right. So obviously we always have to look for that balance, right? And making sure that we keep that human element and not let the bots take over. So Andy, I'd love to hear your last thoughts. We're saving the best for last to hear your last thoughts before we sign out today.
Yeah, the irony for me is that what we're able to do with AI is go full circle. And we talked at the start about the one-on-one piece, and imagine that you were someone who was selling feed for a cow and you were driving around all the states of the US and selling this in-person piece. And that personal relationship meant the world. And Mark covered it before too. It's like, if he wants to talk to Rob at any point, virtual Rob is there and he'll do whatever Mark needs him to do. But human nature, right? I've got a background in audio branding, and there's this thing, there's a trust, right? If you talk to Alexa or Siri, like that's getting more personal too, right? But there's still this human psychology of, and like what Anthony just said sort of touches on a little bit, is at what point do you know whether you're talking to AI Rob or real Rob? But what we're able to do is get this personalization piece, and people want that. They want to feel like that they're heard and they're recognized. And I've had experiences where I know I'm going to buy something, but a really frustrating salesperson, and I'm a stubborn person, I'll walk away from that transaction that I was 100% going to do because the person is not competent. So as a consumer, I want that experience to be as streamlined as possible, where something that's complicated and convoluted actually becomes automated and transactional like e-commerce can be, right? So AI gets you to that point very quickly, but I still think ultimately that balance of human and AI interaction is the piece that we don't quite know yet. But I'd love to get to a point where if I want to get something, then I can really easily and very quickly and understand context to be able to make informed decisions.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Rob and Andy, for joining us. And I'm excited to see where both of you take the studio to the next level as we go in and start incorporating AI into our marketing and sales and build that trust in our Nobody Studios customer service, our journeys, experiences, and so forth. But this was a great conversation. So for everybody that's joined us, thank you so much. I see a couple of you. I'm not able to see your name, but there's a couple fans, Mark, that you have, people that are signing in, learning, and want to learn about our progress. So please reach out to us. We will check the messages afterwards. And then, as you know, all of our prior live streams are on our YouTube page at Nobody Crowd. So make sure to check out the prior live streams. And don't forget to hit subscribe. We'll see you all next. We're doing a next one on next Friday. So we'll see everybody next Friday.